That's very true, I'm sure.
Because he claims there's only one good attorney in the state of Minnesota. That's his daughter. The only good attorney in the state. I said, bring her on down.
You know you weren't gonna get out of here with these fun of those.
I know, I thought he was gonna hit me up for some, golf balls
Yeah,
or something.
that's what I would
Well,
guess too.
That's coming.
He loses them pretty quickly, so.
Where's the county guys?
I think that's it.
We'll call the meeting to order and start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Could I get a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Could I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We will now recess the regular city council meeting at 5:32 to conduct the public hearing on Ordinance 457, Solar Gardens, and Ordinance 458 on interim use permits. Is there anyone present who wishes to speak for or against this matter? If you want, you state your name and address.
Deborah Olson at 600 Dewey Street. Reading through the ordinance on the solar garden in particular, I understand the moratorium. How did you come up to the figure of a person can only have a solar panel 2 feet by 2 feet?
Well,
That's just for freestanding.
Yes.
Yeah.
Freestanding, because you know they do make new roofing panels that include the solar panels.
That wouldn't apply. If it's mounted on a roof, that would be okay.
Is it permanently mounted, or are you saying that one that's movable? Because there's other solar panels that you can move.
We are stating we do not want panels mounted on the, like, posts throughout the yard or in the open areas.
But it could be still movable, is what I'm hearing you say.
So,
What I'm hearing you say is a fixed stationary solar panel versus one that can be moved.
The intent of the planning commission was that they only want to allow solar panels which are mounted on existing roofs or structures, not freestanding panels like exist in a solar garden, where there's a collection of maybe 100 panels in one location. The only time we would allow a freestanding panel would be those smaller ones that maybe power a weather station, was one that we had quite a long discussion on. Councilmember Gondik, maybe do you want to elaborate on anything?
when you say move, explain that.
There are certain type of solar panels that they are still maybe one or two of the larger panels, but they're on a movable object, say similar to a trailer, so they can move to get the direction of the sun.
What we decided is if it's on top of the roof, that is fine, like Sarah said. What we're not allowing is solar gardens, where it's on its own post.
But see, that's where it becomes confusing. If I'm thinking of a solar garden, I'm thinking of those outside of town.
Right.
Where multiple close to the hundreds
Mhm.
of a solar panel.
Mhm.
But they do make the type for home use, that's a backup system, that you can turn it, you can pivot it. It doesn't have to be up on the roof.
This ordinance is saying it has to be on the roof.
Okay, the reading is real unclear, that's why I also asked about the 2 foot by 2 foot.
That was for the freestanding, like we said, the weather stations, and as we all know with technology, solar panels are getting smaller.
Yes, because I've got many of them.
The spirit of the ordinance is so we don't have a solar garden per se inside city limits. So with a 2x2, you could have 10, 15, 20. That would actually constitute as a solar garden. If you have them on the roof, that's fine. But we just don't want to have solar panels take up valuable space in city limits.
Still the wording is unclear for a human person to read it. That's just what I'm saying. The same reason where I said, you know, when I'm reading it and saying solar garden versus it is permissible to have a fixed solar panel on your structure of the roof.
When you're saying movable panel though, that panel can move, correct? That's what you're saying?
Yes.
But it's still fixed on the roof, correct?
No, they do make movable ones. I can go out there, I can grab the little thing and I can turn it. So I'm getting a better angle, whether it's through my trees
That
or a
would be
better angle.
It can only be roof mounted, period.
We're just,
They
that's,
can only
that
be
is
roof
it,
mounted.
period.
And see, that's why I'm bringing
Yeah.
voicing my concern, because as a lay person to read it, it's not real clear. And so maybe having a clearer direction of the wording versus a solar garden versus home use up on your roof.
We'll look into it.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak for or against this matter? At 5:37, we will reconvene the regular city council meeting. Is there a motion approving ordinance 457 solar gardens and authorizing summary publication?
So moved.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Is there a motion approving ordinance number 458, interim use permits, authorizing summary publication?
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. At 5:38, we will reopen the city council meeting. We will now consider ordinance 459, amending code related to driveway access onto public right-of-way.
Mr. Mayor, if I could.
Oh.
Yeah. The only change is we had to clean up a reference on this. There was just an incorrect reference back to a different section, and then changing the driveway width, which I believe we discussed at a prior council meeting. But this was published online, per the requirements, in our ordinances section. So it is just increasing that driveway width, like was discussed prior. I don't know if Mark, if you have any other comments on it.
We just get so many requests with the 3-car garage now, and everybody trying to put the trailer back up on the slab to make it wider. So we keep doing the variance, so let's change the ordinance to the 36, which, you know, was 24 before, so.
We need a motion then. A motion to approve that ordinance.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, I see. We were going to move up to 6A, the Benton County Fiber Project Agreement.
Could you motion to make that change, just so we have it in the minutes?
Could we I'd like to make a motion to move the Benton County Fiber Project Agreement up to 6A and discuss it now.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We will now open the Benton County Fiber Project Agreement. Now, we have a problem with the fiber agreement. Benton County is not complying with our wishes. I thought there'd be, besides Jared, I thought we'd have some other county people here tonight. But as far as I'm concerned, and I think most of the council, we will not allow Benton County in it unless they meet our demands. If they don't want to meet our demands, they can just find their own way of getting the fiber project into their town. Sarah?
Just so we're clear and everybody's on the same page, the requests, and feel free to jump in, Adam. We had a few different requests that we're kind of at a standstill on. The first was that the county works with the city on a build-out plan of the city for fiber, including a timeline, cost, participation. The second is the city is provided with free services at city-owned locations or facilities. And the third was revenue sharing if the county were to make money on the fiber line. And I'll add with revenue sharing, if the county doesn't make money on the fiber line, it's, that's not a deal breaker, so to speak. It's only if it becomes a moneymaker for the city, or for the county, that we're concerned about. Did you wanna add, was that pretty clear, or?
So I had a discussion with the Benton County Attorney's Office. I'm not sure, there's clearly some miscommunication on that, but, I guess it was made clear to me that the revenue part of that was not on the table and that there were significant concerns with, committing to providing free service. And admittedly, there would be a third-party provider involved in that, and so it would require certain contract provisions to be included through the county level. But yes, I think those are the 3 points where there is still discussion to be had, maybe is the best way to put it.
Yeah, if you want to get up to the podium,
All right.
help us out a little.
Jared Gopinski, Benton County Commissioner, District 4. I appreciate it, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, to speak tonight. I actually chair this committee, the Broadband Committee, and we've been working very hard on it. I'll throw myself under the bus. Since I became chair 2 meetings ago, I should have brought the attorneys involved in this earlier to get this done. I believe, in my own opinion, that we're all on the same page. It's just that we're sometimes putting the cart in front of the horse. I think we need to bring both the city attorney and the county attorney into our broadband meeting so that they're hearing it from all the committee members on what we've discussed. Because I think they're hearing it secondhand, the attorneys are, and I think things are getting kind of jumbled in between rather than hearing it right from the committee.
We'll see. As Sarah had said, we had those 3 points. Now, at an earlier meeting, I know Scott Johnson, he's the commissioner for District 1, regional. He had said that should be no problem. But see, we don't want any, you or anybody else saying we should be able to do it. I think we want everything in writing, and we want everything that we had set up for it.
Absolutely.
And
I completely see Foley's side. I do, and I think by getting Mr. Ripple and Ms. Myers together in the same room with our whole committee, I think that would really pay dividends to get everybody on the same page. Because I can tell you, I'm with Commissioner Johnson. You know, I don't see that there's huge problems. Do I think there's gonna be huge revenue sharing? I don't. As I told Ms. Braun, I don't know how much there is gonna be, but I'm not opposed to that at all. The getting fiber, getting free fiber to all city buildings, we actually even discussed school districts. So I don't think that we're out of the realm. Now, the way we pay for that is how we basically horse trade with the provider that comes in. So there may be a payment, but then it's offset by a payment back from the carrier. There's gotta be an exchange, you know what I mean? So can we say that there's quote unquote free fiber? Maybe not, but there's gonna be a change, like a revenue coming in and a revenue or a distribution going out that offsets. So does that make sense? So I really truly believe that we're on the same page. I think, I feel bad for Mr. Ripple and Ms. Myers because I don't think that they just haven't heard it right from everybody at the committee all at one time. And I think one meeting would get people on track.
See, we can't afford to wait. We got timelines and we gotta get this thing moving, and it's gotta be done. I mean, we gotta have, you know, we'd like a written commitment from them. They will agree to this so we can keep our project moving and keep going.
We do have a meeting next Monday at 9:30 that I don't know what Mr. Ripple's availability is, but I can check Ms. Myers.
Yeah, if I could.
May I ask a question? I have been told by our city administrator that the county is not willing to have a build-out plan for Foley.
As in?
A plan to provide the service to our citizens.
We can't.
I mean, you have to lay the fiber to get
Yeah.
it to the house or to the business.
We don't have a plan for building out the county either right now. This is, we gotta build that plan. That's part of the feasibility study. That's part of all the stuff that we gotta get in yet and figure out what all of the costs are gonna be.
Well, in Foley, when we put in a street, we put in the fiber. My understanding is the county doesn't do that.
We are looking at the availability of doing that. We have actually checked on 55 and Rice right now. They have actually got fiber already in the ground, so we don't have to do that. We are working with our county engineer to put that where it is needed. Our hope is that after this broadband commitment is done in Benton County, that all of Benton County is built out. That's our goal.
Well, our goal, my goal as a city council member is that Foley get the service. It's our ditch. We're paying a hefty price for it. We've got cable laid, we've got a plan to lay the cable that we've been paying. We didn't get any money from the federal government to do this. So we want our businesses and anyone else who wants it to have a plan to provide that to Foley. And I don't see where our investment is being acknowledged.
Well,
I mean, it's great to have high-speed cable to every person in the county. Foley needs it, we need it now, we've got a plan. We want it, and if you're not interested in providing us that, we can do it ourselves. We have.
Yeah. I can't sit
You've
here
got
tonight and
competition on
say
the
as a
provider.
board.
Well, my understanding was that the answer is no. Foley
As-
isn't gonna get a build-out plan.
Nobody said that.
Ms. Brunn, you wanna comment?
The attorneys had a conversation and indicated those 3 items were not points of discussion at this time. So they didn't want to discuss that potential.
We as a board cannot tell you we're gonna build out Foley when we have no dollars, we have no figures yet. We're in the infant stages of figuring this out. The first part is getting the fiber from St. Cloud to Foley. That is absolutely gotta happen. And as elected officials, I think we need to come together and figure a way to make that happen. And not basically Foley doing it and the county doing it. That makes no sense. I truly believe we can come to an agreement.
Well, we have a timeline because we got a sewer problem here that we're not willing to delay for this agreement. We have a plan. We have contacted other providers. And, if we don't have it in writing, we're gonna go with a different plan. I'm gonna vote to go with a different plan. Because I think Foley, the city of Foley, the citizens of Foley have made investments and have paid out of pocket for this stuff. So we're not gonna, get in line behind anybody else in Benton County. Foley wants the high-speed internet, and we've made the investment. That, you know, the stuff that we've already done, you don't have to redo.
True.
So we want our businesses and whoever wants high-speed internet to have a plan that that's gonna be done. And if it can't be done on a priority basis, we'll take our investment and our contract elsewhere, because we need it and we need it now.
And we as a county did approve like $325,000 for the fiber and the engineering fees.
Yeah.
That was over and above.
Yeah,
And
well,
we've
we've already
approved
paid
it.
engineering fees once.
No,
so-
we're reimbursing, correct?
The county did move that they would reimburse us because of the money that was spent on the prior plan. That is correct. And then the new design engineering that's occurring at this point.
And like I said, I think getting the
So is there
fiber.
gonna be a build-out plan or not for Foley? I mean, that, if it's not, we're kind of stuck.
I can't sit here and give you a build-out plan right now, because I don't have any figures. I mean, that would be like wanting to buy a car, and you get to the dealership, and it's $100,000, and you have 40. You know, we gotta come up with the dollars, and that's what we're trying to do. And I think getting Mr. Ripple and Ms. Myers in our meeting, I think we can clear up a lot of things.
Weren't they already in the meeting?
No.
Maybe if I can speak to that a little bit, and this is where I think we're kinda talking, we're not really resonating. So, to be fair, just like the city needs to have some engineer's estimates or something before a project, the county's gonna do the same. I think what the city is saying is we're looking for a commitment that this is a collaborative relationship with the city and the county that will lead to high-speed service within the city of Foley. Understanding that there's some unknowns. And so my belief is that the city's looking for that commitment. I think what the county's hearing is that we're looking to have affirmative, obligations to do things. And I think that's a little bit where the disconnect is on that point.
Well, I believe that they should have an obligation to do that. I think Foley we've got it set up that we have a plan and a way to pay for high-speed internet. It's not cheap, but we feel that's what's necessary for our economic development, and we don't, we're not gonna wait and see.
So I have a question. I do this for a living, so
Okay.
I just happen to be, this is why I chaired the committee and stuff, but what you guys have the money for is to bring the fiber to Foley.
That's right.
There is no plan after that, even right now, to build out Foley.
I understand there isn't a plan, but we will contract with a company that will commit to building out Foley and,
But that's what we're trying to do, is we're trying to leverage the carriers to build out the rest of the county by allowing them to use these fiber strands for free. This is, go ahead.
Okay, and I think that's the point, just too, is the leverage. When we give up that leverage of owning that utility or that conduit fiber, that's the concern of the city council. How do we guarantee the county's going to come through and make sure this happens for Foley?
Yep.
The council is very concerned with that item. I think is that maybe the safe, and we don't have the leverage to bargain if we don't own it.
Okay, I'm gonna throw all my cards on the table. Because if the city does it, you lose the leverage. If the county does it, we lose, or you know what I mean? Everybody loses. The only way we all win is we partner together and we maximize the leverage that we have in this. That's the only way this wins.
Is that the consensus of all the commissioners?
I can't speak for all of them, but I know that the commissioners in our board meetings are very much on board on broadband. Very much. We want to be a connected county. And from myself, I'm originally from Foley. I look at this and go, how can we not have a county seat with high-speed internet? But the rest is all built out. To be quite honest, I live in Sauk Rapids, and I just checked my speeds today. You guys would have better speeds than me when if this gets built out the way everybody hopes. But we gotta wait for the numbers to come in and find out how much we can do.
Well, you have to realize too, all the meetings that I've attended, okay, I'm gonna throw you guys under the bus.
That's fine.
In county planning commission meetings, they have thrown us under the bus saying, well, we haven't had a land use plan in place for 12, 15 years. We have in place right now plans that we're moving forward with. We don't want to stop those plans. We can't wait.
Mm-hmm.
But you're saying that you don't have a plan yet. Well, I understand that you don't have a plan, but you know what? You also have to realize that we have to keep moving forward. So here it is. But you guys gotta get going.
Yeah.
Plain and
We
simple.
all gotta get going, because there's no
We have a
plan
plan.
other than bringing the fiber to Foley.
Well, we have a plan, and it also falls in line with our wastewater. We need our wastewater. It
Yep.
falls in line with that. We can't wait, you
Well,
know.
we would love to have one or two of the council people on this committee, because maybe you guys could bring your plan to the committee and we can operate off of that too.
As long as we have the spirit of cooperation.
Well, and I think you're gonna have the spirit of cooperation if we get the two attorneys together in a meeting and we as a committee tell them what our goals are.
Our biggest, at our last meeting, that was our biggest concern is spirit of cooperation.
I'll tell you this, I don't know what has happened in the past. I believe in teamwork, and that's not a cliche.
Yep.
And I don't come here to blow any smoke. I come here to work with you guys. I think our community needs it, and I've been a huge proponent of working together the whole time. And I truly believe, I'll be the first to admit when I'm wrong, I think we can make this work.
I believe we can too, but we have to keep moving forward.
Yep.
And fast.
Yep, well,
That's what I'm saying.
we got a meeting, and some of the things that came up in our meetings is the RDOF areas. I believe some of Foley falls in that RDOF area. I thought there was a small chunk. Yeah, I thought it was just on the outskirts. So there's a lot of things, and I've been working with Emily Murray, from AMC to figure out what we can do with the RDOF area, because at this point, we cannot touch the RDOF area. You can't, we can't, nobody can. She was unaware of that, and she is digging into that for us. So there's a lot of things that are going on and in place. This is a big plan. The county is very much dedicated to this plan. I believe you guys deserve a lot of credit for doing what you're doing. And, I mean, you guys bit off a lot, putting that sewer in and building that out. And I think there's a great partnership here. It's just gotta be fostered a little bit.
How do you explain your attorney saying that the three things that we wanted, that we made clear to Scott Johnson when we started changing the plans and spending our money too on that. And then the attorney says, well, nope, we're not doing,
I can't speak to that, cause I wasn't there
that's
for
why
that meeting.
I don't care about having attorneys in the room, because it sounds like they're saying different things than you are.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think if we get everybody in the same room together, because, to be quite honest, I talked to, the county attorney today before I came here, and she even stated that we're trying to put together agreements that we haven't been privy to, even being in the meetings. So we're fumbling through things and not exactly sure on what we should be doing either. So, like I said, I'll put it on me. I should have invited the attorneys a meeting ago when I got the chair position. I'll take it. I'll put that on me. Let me move this forward, and let me get the attorneys involved, and I think we can clear this up.
Okay,
And
but you gotta remember, those 3 items we talked about earlier, if we aren't gonna get them, there's gonna be no deal, period. Either we get what we had set up and asked for, or there's simply no deal, and we'll do the line ourselves if we have to, but we're not gonna wait around while the county goes back and forth and back and forth. Either we get what we set up, or, we're just gonna, like the old saying goes, we're gonna take our ball and go home. We're gonna do it our way. And when she says they won't negotiate, well then, hit the road.
Yeah.
We won't put up with that.
In all fairness, she's not here, and I wasn't there, so we'll work with them together and see what we can come up
But
with.
see, it's gotta be done, like in a week or two, cause we gotta keep this job a-rolling, and we can't afford to wait.
Mark, when do you go out for bid?
I can tell you, I talked to Jared.
You talked to him
Yep.
today? Okay.
Early August is when I need final, because they need, if they have to do any final adjustments, they need a couple weeks to make sure, but yeah, it's end of August or
Okay.
early September, so we're tight, really tight on timeline. And we do not want to jeopardize, we got all the funding in place and the wastewater treatment user agreements going forward, we worked through that hurdle. If we wanna keep our timeline, we cannot jeopardize this in any way, it has to move forward. Otherwise, we're gonna be looking at a whole nother cycle, construction season.
Okay. And you can send, you have the points that they're looking for, right, Mr. Ripple?
Yep, those have been provided.
Okay.
These 3 options we asked for are, I think, more than fair in our, what would be our partnership. Do you know why that they took it off the table? I don't think we're asking too much.
I have no idea, because I have talked to Ms. Brown about this, and the revenue sharing, I think, is gonna be a moot point. If we can build out everything and everybody has high-speed internet, I think that's a win for everybody. And I can tell you as a county person, do I want revenue sharing? Absolutely, but if it's not there at the end, it's not a deal breaker for the county. As for building out the city sites or the free service to the city, I think that's, like I said, that's gonna be in the horse trading with the fiber strands and everything. I don't see a problem with that. Is it gonna be listed as free? No, it'll be income coming in and a revenue going out that will.
Well, that's what Scott Johnson told us also.
Yeah.
But I would like to see that in writing.
Yep.
So we know we got some assurance that this is what it's gonna be. It's gonna be okay, we will do that. I
Yeah.
wanna see it right.
I think we can clear a lot of this up very quickly.
Answer me this, since we started this, you're saying that the commissioners didn't have a plan months ago?
Broadband has been on the past boards. You gotta I just got elected,
Yep,
I'm in.
I understand
You know,
that.
so I'll take credit and the whipping for others and stuff, but they've had broadband on their mind for a long time. The problem is, it costs a lot of money to do it. And until COVID hit, and now this American Rescue Plan, money came in, there hasn't been a real option other than levy to build it out. We are very lucky in Benton County. It doesn't help Foley out right now, but Benton Telephone has a very big footprint in the county. And they could potentially be a provider, along with others that are out there, to make this plan happen. And it's always been for the last 5 years or 6 years that they've been talking about broadband. It just, there was never the money to do it. So, now there's money out there, and I can tell you, I truly believe we got a committed county board to make a lot of things happen.
Mr. Mayor, if I, yeah.
Yes.
Just because I understand that we're on a tight timeline, I would recommend to the council that we do establish some parameters. What I do not want to have happen is for this to drag out and put us in jeopardy for the larger project. So, we need to have a firm decision going into that first week of August. Do we set a timeline for something to come back to us? Do we kick it to the county attorney and you know, we have this meeting and the county attorney drafts up something that comes back to us within a week or two? And then, I mean, we're talking that's 3 weeks away. August 3rd meeting is. I would recommend we do something on a timeline to make sure that everybody moves on this and we move quickly. If we're going to have this discussion, it needs to happen and it needs to be productive now.
I agree with that.
Well,
The meetings that
Are you,
I've attended.
is the county gonna like print up a proposal or an agreement paper or something?
What I would see happening is we go through this meeting on Monday, providing the 2 attorneys can be there. And that would be our number 1 priority is getting everybody up to speed. And then I would assume that after we all are in agreement on what we can put down in writing, then the 2 attorneys would put that together. Would that be fair to say?
Cause I'd like it done by next week.
How much time do you need, Adam?
Well, I mean, how much assurance do you want? I think we can definitely come up with a memorandum of understanding, have things written. We're not gonna have the full-blown agreement and drafted by the time you need to make that decision. I just be realistic on that. And so, you know, to have the points agreed to in an outline form, is that gonna satisfy the council to get that? You know,
If we can get these 3 options,
I would just ask us something that, I mean, legally binding, or what, you know, what kind of protections does the city have? That, you know, if a whole new group of commissioners gets elected, you know.
Yeah, I mean, we can
If they
figure
will
that
put
out
something in
in
writing,
that time
we
frame.
will get everything that we had set up and asked for. If they'll put it in writing so we can sign it, then if it's gotta take you a little bit longer to get the final drafts and everything written up, fine, but we just want something so we know we can keep going forward.
Right, so, you know, the one point in particular is the service or extension to city facilities. You know, there's gonna be a third party involved with that, whether the city goes it alone and works with a provider, or there's an agreement with the county. And so it would be about getting a commitment from the county that in any agreements that they put together with the provider, that those specific terms are in there. And so I think that gets you the assurance you're looking for, knowing that there's still gonna be one more little step to get that provider agreement in place, but just so the council understands that.
I think the important thing, in my opinion, is the build-out plan. We want our businesses and people that work from home that need it to have a priority, because we've already laid some of the lines. We've already, you know, paid to build the ditch. We've raised our water rates. We want our businesses and our citizens to have high-speed internet. And I don't wanna wait in line with everybody in the county who hasn't paid a dime. And so, yeah, we want priority because we've already paid for it.
I understand that.
And I
Rose.
know that isn't equal and fair, but we're gonna put in the line, we're building the ditch, we've already started the build-out in Foley. Every time we have a street, how long's that been going on?
Well, we put them in for Highway 23, cause we wanted to make sure that was happening, and we're putting them in with their sewer extension, and like, they're going into all of our cost estimates for all of our future plans, because we know we need to do this, and this is what residents want. So, I mean, we are laying it, and we wanna leverage that. I absolutely think that's part of the build-out plan. You're going to leverage, you know, every street project we're going to do in the next 5 years. That's how we're gonna get those areas. But I also think it's important to note the, location of our city facilities are all different areas of the city. So by running services to those, we will pick up a lot of ground, just because we are kind of located all over, in different areas of the city. So that was always a big portion. If we could get those services to that location, we would pick up a lot of places, so that's very important to us. So I think that's another thing to consider.
Okay. Well, you know, it's nice the city gets free service. That's great. But the whole point of the internet was for our citizens and our businesses. And I don't want that overlooked, and I don't want our businesses and our banks in line with the whole county, because your build out is gonna be hard because you're so spread out.
From our talk, I believe, Mark, you had said 700 houses roughly? And the math on that, just to make it clear, I'll do it really quick.
What's the percentage that pick up on the high speed, Jared?
What was that?
What's the percentage that even would accept the high speed to pay the extra, like in your business?
You mean from a resident standpoint?
Right.
They look, all the carriers that we've talked to are looking at about a 70% return rate for their people. So I'm figuring at a $3,500 per household and that might be a little low, that's $2.4 million. And the lowest we have found is 30% of a commitment. That would mean Foley would have to do $735,000 out of your money to build out Foley after the fiber is here. So that fiber would be another $300,000 if you take it on your own. So you're looking at an additional $1 million to build that out.
And
That's if you get the partners and leverage them and do that. And that's using leverage. So that's what I'm saying. We can't commit to major dollars right now because we don't know what those dollars 100% are. We need to follow the path to get us there.
I think we're just looking for agreement to get the fiber in the ground, and then from there, I mean, we're talking 2 years down the road probably before we even, correct?
Honestly, Mr. Brosh, I'm hoping that we start doing a lot of fiber next year. That would be, this RDOF thing is the only thing right now that can throw a wrench in it, but there is areas that a guy could start hitting. But I'm thinking a 2-year plan, especially if there's more than one provider involved in this. And the committee has been really, I think, a very good committee put together, and we've been hashing out a lot of things. From a county standpoint, I was just at the district meeting. We are oodles ahead of other counties on this, way ahead of this, and thankful because of Foley and the sewer and everything like that. That's what got us here, and that's where we're moving forward with it. So I still believe that a good partnership here between Foley and the county on this project will spur other projects going forward. I think you know, I'll make sure of it.
Well, that's what we thought, but like I said, without those 3 items that they said they won't negotiate, there will be no agreement.
Yeah.
And if we have to fund it ourselves, we'll fund it ourselves and put it in. And then the county would really get stuck with a big bill if they had to try and bring out their fiber on their own.
The real I mean, this is, like I said, I do this for a living. It's gonna cost the county about $60,000 more than what you guys are paying, because we would have to do the engineering. We would actually take a different route. We would go straight down 23 instead of doing the jog. And that jog of 3 miles on extra fiber and manholes and splices would actually be about $40,000. But once again, it makes 0 sense for the city to do it on their own and the county having 2 strands of fiber, because what's gonna end up happening is now the carriers are gonna be leveraging you against the county and vice versa, and we all lose.
Sarah?
Mr. Mayor, do you wanna make a motion, or somebody want to establish a timeline? I just need clear direction on the negotiation, what you know, what we need, what the timeline is, when we need to have these items in place. Because I need to know what to tell the wastewater engineer and put in that bidding packet.
2 weeks would be the longest we could possibly, waste any more time on this.
Ooh, I was looking at 1 week and let's get her done. I don't know if that's too short.
Well, Adam was a little hesitant there when I asked him how long it would take, so I'll give him 2 weeks.
I mean, we'll endeavor to meet whatever you set. I would say 1 week is
Cutting her a little
a
short.
lot to chew.
Well, we would just have our meeting on Monday morning.
Well, next council meeting is August 3rd.
No, it'd be the 20th.
City council.
City
meeting.
council.
Oh, I'm sorry, okay.
Yep, next city council meeting, and there'd be a county board meeting that day too, most likely, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, would be August 3rd. So, you know, we definitely need something a little ahead of time to make sure we're on the right path, but, you know, that's when you as a body would address anything.
Okay, so, well, would 2 weeks be too short, or I mean, too long a time for our framing, cause that would be.
How about, should we put it this way, we need to have something, you know, in front of the city council by August 3rd, and we need to have, you know, some substantial items in place in 2 weeks. Like, there needs to be some movement, for sure, by 2 weeks. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's good enough direction.
Then we'll just add that little blip in there, if they're not gonna, if they don't wanna negotiate them 3 points, we won't even worry about it, because there will be no agreement. It's just, that's the way it's gonna be.
Well, we have negotiated with another company that is willing to give us those things and let us keep our fiber. So that's your competition.
But they did not make any plans on building out your city. Well, I was in the meetings.
We looked at draft agreements that included free city services and a build-out plan. We did not sign anything,
Mhm.
but we own the conduit.
Yep,
So we had our leverage, is what I am saying.
okay.
So you need that in the motion, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, I believe we do, so that it'll be on record. Are you making that a motion?
Yes, I will.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council.
Thank you, Jared.
Thank you for.
Staff.
We will now have open forum. If there's anybody wishing to come up here and speak.
See ya.
Okay. Come to the podium.
Don't give me that look.
Well, no, we like to keep this to just a couple of minutes, and
I understand 3 minutes. I have Deborah Olson, 600 Dewey Street. I had some questions about that, industrial park plat. I'm wondering where they came up with comparing the city of Foley with those listed in here. We have nothing in common with those particular cities when they're making those draftings and proposals. Nothing in common with Norwood, Young America. St. Joseph is a college town. You have Richfield, Minneapolis. Well, that's Metro.
Sarah?
Jordan, Metro.
Okay,
Chaska.
okay.
The council hasn't heard that presentation yet. That was in their minutes. There is a presenter tonight here that we will talk about that. So if you'd like to stay, that's under the land use plan discussion.
Approve engineering agreement for new industrial park.
Nope,
And
that's a separate.
already been approved.
Nope, nope, this,
That was first part.
nope, this is
consent
not,
agenda.
what you're talking about is the land use plan
Okay, so
presentation.
does that mean I still get to speak when the?
Yeah, I'm just saying that's two separate items, that's not related to the
Okay.
industrial park.
Because I want to also point out, you know, I don't know if anybody has watched the program. It's called A Small Business Resolution with Robert Hershevik and Amanda Brickman. And that program is designed on building small towns, small businesses. And so also I'd like to see some key objectives, revitalizing the downtown and heart of the city. Just the 5,000 spent on painting one mural is insufficient. We're losing our businesses downtown. Capitalizing on small business growth. What are we doing to help those small businesses? Retaining the younger population to stay and entice our younger population to move here. We have no jobs. You know, we're doing an industrial park. Is there something that has triggered you to make this big industrial park? Do we have this big corporation that's gonna build? Those are things, you know, we're spending a lot of money, and people wanna know, well, why are we spending that money? And I would be one of them. Why spend $521,000 for land for an industrial park? $20-some thousand for a proposal? That doesn't mean that they're gonna finish out the rest of it, 'cause that's more money. So, take a look at those things, you know, where if I'm looking at, you know, what you're proposing, I'd wanna know why. Why are you spending my tax dollars? Thank
If
you.
we don't have anything to offer, there's nobody gonna come asking.
Have we had anything that
Is,
has
whoa,
gone
whoa,
too
whoa,
much?
whoa, whoa, whoa. Once you, it's,
I'll stand up again. Have we had anything come after Foley
George.
in how many years?
is there anyone else who wishes to speak on open forum? We'll move on to department reports with Bart Kaufman on the police department.
Thank you. Good evening. As you can see, for calls of service for June, we had 352. I won't go through all of them. Obviously, you all have a list here. There's a few that are trending up. Thefts, we've seen more of. Suspicious activity, medical and welfare checks. I think a lot of that was probably due to the heat in June. Family members calling on loved ones. Assaults, domestics, that's a little bit concerning too, so that's a little bit up there, but that's just the nature of society now, I think. And we've been dealing with more animal complaints here in town too. Rest is pretty self-explanatory. We've got some more TZD hours that we can use. I believe that's for speed enforcement. I don't know exactly how many we have to yet use on that. I'd have to check. Other than that, for June, our bike rodeo went well. We had a lot of kiddos turning out for that one, and a lot of parents that were happy that we had it, obviously last year with COVID being an issue. Foley Fun Days, no real issues that we had as far as the police department goes, or issues that we had to deal with. Our 2021 squad car, we're supposed to be getting the graphics on that on Friday, I believe. It's sitting at Murphy's right now. The gentleman that does our electronic work for the squad car is about a week out, so we're hoping next week to get it over to Terry over by Forston, so he can get the lights and everything else situated for that car. Other than that, I don't have anything else right now.
Okay, we are going to, for now, table the discussion on the parking and storage ordinance for now. And
You should do that, we should probably do that by motion.
That's already under a motion.
you
From the
wanna
last meeting, we tabled it.
Oh, okay.
So,
You're just saying leave it on the table.
you just leave it on the table.
Works for me, I guess.
Okay, we'll move on to city engineer, Jared Griffin.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. I don't have much tonight. Thank you for approving the agreement during the consent agenda here. I would like to talk about the process of platting that industrial park. With the approval of the agreement tonight, I believe probably beginning next week, we'll get some guys out in there, out in the field and start doing some of that topo survey and the boundary survey. Kind of coinciding with that would be the wetland delineation process. The first step to that would be the kind of, with it being an agricultural land, would be more the crop slide review, which is looking back over the last, I don't know, 30, 40 years or so, and getting 3 to 5 dry seasons, 3 to 5 wet seasons, and looking at what kind of, how the crops were handled, like what kind of deficiencies the crops had during that time. And that would also be used to help determine the delineation of the wetland, where that boundary is at. After that point, we get another guy out in the field, see what's out in the field, see if we can see anything with the soil types, elevation changes, stuff like that. After that would be the actual report process. That should take, by the end, I would think we'd have something probably by the end of August for that report to be done. And then there would be the actual platting process of this is where that initial boundary survey is used to determine descriptions for our platting process. And then we'll be using our concept plan that in our last meeting we talked about. I think we have anywhere from 2 to 3 acre lots currently. We talked about having larger 5 acre lots. That would be more enticing to businesses. So with that concept there, and also the boundary survey, we'd be able to use those to annex that portion of the property, and then at that point we'd rezone it, and then we'd split it out into those concept lots we had at the time. If there's any other questions, that's kind of all I have for tonight.
Any questions for him? Okay, thank you. We'll move on to Public Works and Fire, Mark Pattenfuss.
I'll be quick, Mr. Mayor, City Council. Like I say, I'll keep it quick. Nothing specific tonight, I don't think, for you guys. Pool maintenance side is going good. Sections went good. We got some flow issues, a few things like that may have to address, but nothing there. Trying to get some of our summer projects done. Highway 23 lighting, you have that in your, we keep talking about this light on the end of the trail out there, just east of 13th Avenue. Sarah handed out pricing on that, what it roughly costs. These lights like here, we're averaging what I have there, $2.33 per light per month, so that's $28 a year. And that's the summer, so it's shorter, it's gonna be longer. So the estimate from Dave Nelson from SRF, saying it's $35-40 is close. I mean, so you're looking at $35-40. But my opinion, the goal of this project was to safety. It's gonna make it safer out there. I think we just keep it in the plan. And that's part of the letting the whole trail into town.
And keep in mind, we still have those grant dollars that will be coming in to help pay for the actual lights on the front end.
So it just be the yearly cost.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Nate, looks like they're not talking LEDs. I'm sure these got the LED lights they're putting in.
I was gonna ask that, they gotta be LEDs.
What type pole did they decide on?
Oh, goodness. It's more simple, it's not.
Well, it's with a banner saver arm.
Yep.
Yeah. And we
Banner
got
arm, but it's
banner saver, it's a
simple, not too
MnDOT
frilly.
pole, Gary,
Are they gonna steel, aluminum,
natural, aluminum natural color or whatever, non-painted.
Yep. I give you the.
Yeah. So I say we just go continue with the light, and hopefully, that I say some of the costs will pay for that. We'll just have the yearly maintenance costs.
Sounds good.
Other than that, unless you have something, I wanna keep moving along here tonight. I don't have any specific stuff, I don't think,
Did anybody have any questions for
on
him?
either side.
You wanna move on to the
Yes,
land
at
use?
this time, we were going to move on to the land use plan discussion. A joint meeting with the planning commission.
No, not you. Yeah, do you wanna get your laptop set up?
Yeah, that was great.
Where is Bill and Noel?
Yeah.
I just sent them a hard copy packet. Okay, so I'm gonna. If I disconnect here. And you go to your settings.
Yeah.
And then add Bluetooth to another device, and then wireless to square. And then council chambers too.
Cool.
It should just go, it's connected.
Color
There's
Yeah.
no volume, right?
No, no, I have
So then
no
you can just
fancy
page them
videos.
on your own.
All right, thank you.
Does that work?
Yeah,
Okay.
perfect.
Okay. You guys
Lisa,
should have
Amy.
all hard copies, can you see this, or?
At least it was in October, I did in September.
Ready, Mr. Mayor, council members? Are you?
Yeah, looks good.
Awesome, all right, well,
You have one planning commission, other planning commission member here, I don't know where the other, well, no, I don't know where Noel and Bill are.
There's
Noel.
There's Bill. Just in time. Right on time. I like it.
You can sit, or you can sit wherever.
punctual. All right, well,
Awesome, we got 'em all here.
thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members, and members of the planning commission. My name's Lance Bernard, with a firm called HKGI. I'm a planner. We've been assisting city staff in developing a future land use plan, a direction by the council and planning commission to move forward with really thinking about what does Foley look like in the next 20, 30 years when we are planning out our land uses. And certainly a lot of that driving force is the discussions you guys have had over the recent years about adding infrastructure, the agreements with Gilman Township and annexation, that sort of thing. So we wanted to really take a moment tonight to talk about how we've been shaping a future land use plan for the community, go through our study process, some of the information we've been digging into, and really listen to you guys tonight. We're still in the middle of this process, want to get your ideas of what you think we should be aware of, but we certainly have been engaging staff, community members, and property owners to the like of having this similar conversation. So really our goal through this study process is, again, really looking at how do we want to plan for our future land uses 20 years out. Knowing that there's some changes coming, and let's be proactive and smart about that. So this is a fairly visionary kind of process. I mean, we're talking 20 years out. Certainly land use changes can happen more immediate, but things may take time to see change over that 20-year period. So our study process is really about really kind of understanding what's going on in the community. What are things that we should be thinking about, bigger changes, trends, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Certainly understanding what the community's aspirations are for development, what are the markets telling us to support new development in the near-term future, and then really understand how do we plan for that. Where are the right things to happen in the right areas of the community? Where should housing go? Where should jobs go? Commercial, that sort of thing. And then we really kind of round out our process with more engagement to make sure that these ideas fit with your aspirations for the community, fit your values, and so forth. So we're in the middle of the process. We're kind of getting in this diagram here in that draft land use plan phase, get your ideas, thoughts before we go back out to the public to test some of these bigger ideas and then wrap things up here by the end of the summer. So as we get into these discussions, we've shared information. I believe staff has shared some information with you in the past. I have some tonight about just the existing conditions and the trends and things that we're thinking about. How are we changing? What are the growth projections for the community? Foundation for that is really looking at your infrastructure plans, using a baseline of
really assuming that you're gonna see about 300 to 800 new residents by 2040. That could generate anywhere from 120 to 325 new households. So that's been kind of a foundation for our exercise, but certainly that could change. Things, projections can change over time as well. So we've been looking a lot about the demographics of Foley, the makeup of the community, what are some of those trends. That's been on a community report card that I believe has been shared with you a little bit, and we don't need to get into the details of that, but what we do want to just kind of highlight is some of the bigger trends that kind of roll around in our mind when we're thinking about future land use plans, and things have changed or are hard to grapple with in the times we are with the goofy year that we've had with markets and coming out of a pandemic. There's a slowing of growth. We're seeing, so some of the bullets I have in front of here tonight, the housing market is certainly one thing that I think most people are gravitating towards. There is a pent-up demand for housing, a mix of housing. What is the right balance of housing for the community, whether that's single-family, townhomes, a certain a mix to accommodate everybody's needs. But certainly construction prices are going way up. So we're seeing a lot of developers really trying to maximize their land, or I shouldn't say their land, but trying to maximize their product, maximize the labor that they have, and stretching those construction dollars to really do smaller lot developments than larger lot developments than what we've seen historically. Now, that's not to say that there isn't a demand for larger lot development. It's just saying that there is a demand for some smaller unit types, not just here in Foley, but certainly across the greater Minnesota area and nationwide as well. We're also seeing household sizes somewhat decreasing on a national trend. Less people are having bigger families, and so that kind of is a factor that plays into the housing style and the housing market that people are demanding. And as I could ramble on and on about those trends, but we're just trying to emphasize here a little bit too, is as a part of our effort, we're trying to find that right balance. How much housing should we be planning for that mix to accommodate different price points, different families, and more importantly also life cycle housing for somebody to move into the community with a young family to then being able to stay here and age in place and have that senior type housing. So those are things that are kind of coming across our mind, things that we're trying to explore. Certainly a lot of other trends we've been seeing, growth, not only just the state, but the nation is seeing a slowing in growth over the last 2 years. And the state demographer from Minnesota is also projecting slower growth over the next 40 years. And so that's just something to be mindful of. Things can change, but we're just trying to think about these things as well. Certainly, even though this plan is looking very specifically at land uses, housing, commercial, where to plan that, it's hard not to have the discussions about parks and transportation systems. All that works together, feeds those land uses, and certainly seeing a huge uptick in the number of park users, trail users. That's what we hear a lot from realtors. That's one of the, behind good school districts, we want to see parks and trails and good access. And then just more food for thought as we've gone into this process. From business standpoint, certainly we're seeing a huger demand for more manufacturing. Looking for larger lot manufacturing lots from 5 acres to 30 acres plus. That's what we're kind of seeing. Certainly the labor force is correcting itself. That's a lot of those manufacturing businesses are really struggling to find more labor to come in. So it's a point to make about making sure you also have a good balance of housing to accommodate a variety of workers when you're looking at different jobs and opportunities for growth, whether it's manufacturing, commercial, office type uses as well. And certainly people's behaviors have changed dramatically on just how we're working. More people are working from home. Is that going to stay the same over the future? I don't know, but at least it's kind of what's going on now to be cognizant of. So in addition to kind of exploring all these emerging trends, all this data collection, just kind of getting a pulse of where Foley may be going, things we should be thinking about, we're also wanting to know where the community wants to go. So we've been going through a community engagement process. Unfortunately, we weren't able to meet a whole lot in person when we started this, but hopefully to do more in-person meetings as we wrap this up, but have been doing more some online surveys, talking to people on the phone, calling property owners to just get a understanding of what their aspirations are. And so through a lot of that early engagement, you know, we've heard that there is certainly a demand or a desire to see more housing, certainly a back to the balance. They're, you know, wanting to see single family housing, but also a need to see other housing options. A lot of people were commenting on more on senior housing through our efforts. And certainly an emphasis by the public on redevelopment, infill opportunities in downtown. How do we maintain and attract businesses in downtown and certainly keep downtown a vibrant place to be and to do business. And I think from our perspectives, as things kind of pick up from a housing development standpoint, I think you'll start to see then more demand for certain commercial uses and maybe some more opportunities starting to pop in downtown. So just a couple other nuggets of information we've heard from the public on just what they are thinking about, back to, you know, parks, trails as valued amenities, and really trying to find opportunities to increase high quality jobs in the community as well. So as we've gone through that, we use a lot of that background information, data collection, engagement to really start to draft these kind of larger, higher level land use goals for the community. I won't read these for verbatim, but we're again trying to incorporate a number of different things from housing, jobs, downtown investments, being able to plan for growth in a sustainable way, parks, natural resources, and those sort of things. So these are draft. Certainly provide us comments if you think you want to tweak those or wordsmith them a little bit, or if there's something we're missing. So to kind of get into really the nuts and bolts of the land use plan, really the purpose of this is to really give you guys something to help guide you in land use decisions. So when you're talking about updates to your zoning districts or ordinances, this plan can serve as that guiding document. And it really is kind of a subset of your comprehensive plan. You know, you guys have a comprehensive plan, a larger community vision. It was done, mid-90s. So this we would see as kind of an amendment to maybe that comp plan. It's a fresher update to the information you may need to help guide you in your decisions, whether that's planning commission, city council. But it really is an opportunity to start to articulate the land use patterns, the growth. Where do we really see growth happening in the community? And I'll get into the details of that here in a minute. So kind of got ahead of myself, but again, the comprehensive plan that you guys have adopted back in the 90s really covers a lot of aspects of the community, from housing, land use, transportation, parks, downtown. This is going to be, in my mind, kind of an update. This is an update to the land use components. So our effort is really to kind of get into the weeds, start to do a little bit of that market testing, understanding the development capacity, how much can the community absorb for new growth, and then really kind of laying out those growth patterns and those preferred land uses throughout the community. And then that really helps inform you again with your zoning code, capital improvements, and other master planning efforts. So the fun part for us, beyond the community engagement and really getting to know the community, is really starting to kind of get the technical side of it and really kind of laying out those growth patterns and where do we want to see growth happen. We have a lot of areas of opportunity to work with. Certainly the areas a part of the annexation agreement, certainly some infill redevelopment opportunities, gives us a lot of kind of flexibility to think more broadly about how we plan out the community. And we like to look at the future land uses in some general categories. So the packet of information we gave you guys give more definitions on what these categories mean throughout the community. At a high level, the urban reserve is really an area that we feel that is kind of a holding. You know, this is an area that we want to kind of maintain more agricultural, rural, until there is much more demand for growth on the outer edges of the community. So we're really trying to focus on areas of opportunity as part of this plan where you're planning smartly and keeping that more in a centralized area. So it's not, you're not running utilities and infrastructure and kind of leapfrogging to a different part of the community without focusing on some of those growth opportunities. So the land use categories for residential, we're really looking at opportunities for those single family lots, but also finding a balance for your opportunities for senior housing, townhomes, condos, smaller single family lots as well. So that's what's really reflected in those low to medium high density residential categories. And then your basic kind of categories of downtown where there's more commerce, commercial along the highways, your business park, and areas of opportunities for more parks and open space. So tonight really again is about discussion. Hopefully you've taken time to kind of read those definitions and ask questions a little bit more. But some of the technical side of things that we've been crunching numbers on is really from an acreage standpoint. And so there is, almost 1,500 acres in the city boundary. You start to pull in those other growth areas and those orderly annexation areas, that's another 880 acres. So fair amount of land to start to think about where new housing and commercial uses are going to go. So we want to understand what the development constraints are. So part of our effort is really understanding where are those natural resources, where are the wetlands, where are there poor soils, where are there things that are going to limit development opportunities. So the map that's in your packet and that's a snapshot up there starts to show where those development constraints are. It's not to say that development can't happen in these areas, but it just may be more challenging or more costly from a property owner or a development standpoint. And it also gives us an opportunity to then really think about the natural resources of the community and where some of those areas may lend themselves more for parks or urban reserve type land uses. So our staff report provides a little bit more information about this process of the information we've used to kind of test the development capacity. And this is a kind of a detailed table, but it really starts to show that there is just ample opportunity in Foley for growth. There's enough land to accommodate well beyond the housing and population projections for the community. So it really gets back to us really thinking about how do we plan smartly to make sure that growth can start to happen more in the center of Foley and on the fringes before we just leapfrog out and start doing things that may cost more for utilities, transportation, and roads and so forth. So stop me if you have questions. I may be going too fast here, but what I wanted to show, and it's in your packet, and I'll kind of, is that future land use map where we are looking at those areas of opportunity, the areas that we feel that are most appropriate to kind of reserve, urban reserve areas are further out in the community. And then areas of opportunity where we have heard some interest by property owners of wanting to development more are certainly closer into the community. Certainly there seems to be a lot of interest by the high school for opportunities for more single family, for other housing types, and then opportunities to really expand some of the industrial park areas and really keeping commercial a little bit more on the transportation corridor, but not ignoring opportunities for commercial uses and investment in downtown as well. So this is a draft of just starting to try to articulate where we think the city should go over the next 20 years. And those land use category definitions are certainly in your packet to give you a more idea of what we mean by saying low density, medium density, commercial, and so forth in the community. What I wanted to kind of bring to the group's attention when I say that there seems to be a certain there is a demand and certainly an interest to see some of that balance of different housing types, and some of the precedent examples we were just kind of pulling out of other communities, just kind of give you a flavor of what others have done, what housing has looked like. So one example in Norwood Young America, they've looked at infill opportunities in their downtown and to integrate senior housing in downtown with their city hall and a library. So just to try to give you a perspective of scale and the number of units for a community of similar size and population. It's not to say these communities are similar in value or other things. It's just more of on a population standpoint. So this was a 50-unit development in Norwood Young America in their downtown. There's a number of precedents. To be respectful of time, I won't go through all of these, but we were looking at where are those infill opportunities in downtown as well. Office is really a hard thing right now. There just isn't that much of a demand for more office space. There's more opportunities to work with what you have. But there may be a developer or a property owner that's willing to do something different. But it's just to give you kind of maybe that pulse on where we see things right now. That we're just not seeing a whole lot of demand for new office, but it's more about integrating, you know, kind of more senior housing in the urban kind of core of your downtowns. You know, certainly integrating more mixed use, as in context of maybe one or two commercial uses. I think in communities, smaller sized communities see, you know, a demand for maybe that medical space, or, you know, a sandwich shop or a coffee shop, but it's not where it's their traditional real urban environment where you have a total first floor of commercial. It may be one or two businesses integrated into that, or, you know, it's really locating housing next to more commercial uses. So things that we've been talking about with staff is creating that flexibility. Is what if somebody wants to do some type of commercial development along 23 or 25 and housing? Is that appropriate? And it seems appropriate, you know, if you want to have that mix of standalone housing and commercial, but within those areas that we think are more appropriate for commercial. Let me back up. I guess what we're trying to say is it's okay to have that mix of housing with your commercial, but the housing probably shouldn't be the predominant use. We'd rather see that housing in other areas that seem more appropriate. So a lot of great examples of just kind of smaller developments throughout kind of this area that we're trying to gravitate towards. Certainly St. Joe is unique in its own nature. It's a college campus. You know, it has more they're building more of this type of product to accommodate students, teachers, and so forth. One thing I think is interesting, and this is certainly a very metro example, but what we're seeing is a lot of VFWs and American Legions kind of reimagining their community space and their event space to integrate more senior living and more veteran housing. So there's certainly a demand for more of that senior veteran housing. That certainly is working in communities where there's already a chapter established or a legion established, where they're starting to see that. We're seeing that certainly more in the metro area in Richfield, Minneapolis, St. Paul, St. Louis Park, and that sort of thing. But just an interesting observation to kind of get you a snapshot of what we're seeing. But then other examples that I was really going to hone in on a little bit more is when we're talking about that mix of housing in some of those smaller lots, whether it's duplexes, townhomes. We're seeing a lot of that in communities around the school campuses. That's where people really want to gravitate towards. And it's just some, you know, examples of what we're seeing in other communities over the last 5 to 10 years. Here's an example in Becker. You see a lot of that kind of higher, medium density residential, 10 plus units per acre in these areas. Big Lake, same thing. The school is located to the north. You start to see much more higher concentration of some different housing mixes there. And we can go across the board. St. Francis, same thing, community we've been working in, seeing much more development concentration near the school campus. And so I think the message here is you're just seeing a different demand by families wanting to be close to schools, because they do offer also a park recreational amenity, gives their kids an opportunity to walk to school. So that's why you're going to see, you know, these suggestions to look at opportunities near the school for more of a mix of housing types in smaller lot developments. Overall, what we've been working on with staff is really what are some of those bigger changes, the bigger moves that we want to be thinking about. It's looking at creating a plan that offers flexibility for things to happen. So if somebody does want to do, say, a commercial development with a little bit of housing in these commercial areas, is that okay? From our perspective, we think it is fine to do that. And then vice versa. You know, if somebody is looking to do more senior living or medium higher density housing in these areas and want to incorporate that one or two commercial spaces, let's create that flexibility, because that's what, you know, is making these developments work and pencil out for folks. So those are discussion items, things to think about, things that we want to articulate in the plan, that the city's open for that kind of flexibility, but certainly provide more detail in the plan of what that flexibility means. You know, put a little bit more meat to it, some parameters to it, and then I think I've said enough. I could keep rambling, but I want to be respectful of time. It's really about discussing, listening to you guys tonight, what you think if we're off basis, are we forgetting something that we need to be thinking about? I'll leave it at that for the group to comment on.
Now, all them, the few that you showed us that, converted a lot of the downtown into like apartments. Now, see, that wouldn't be bad for our downtown, except we have no parking.
Parking?
Parking, yeah, but just,
Yeah.
we got some empty buildings, and if a guy converted them like into apartments and that, it'd be nice for the seniors. But there's not much parking, because you can't park on the streets overnight, and we have no room for parking lots.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and Mr. Mayor and council members, I think, oddly enough, I wear a parking hat. I do a lot of parking studies. I don't know why I got into parking, but to me, it's a good discussion to have. And if you're having parking problems when you're seeing, for me, it's seeing development come in, that's a good problem. We can work through those parking solutions. They're challenging sometimes, but you can get through them. There's different ways to manage your parking, ways to make sure that there's enough parking to accommodate the residents of a new development. But I would encourage council and planning commission not to limit, don't get too hung up on the parking side. You can work through that. I think it's about attracting, development, and once that comes in, that's a good thing to have. So, but Mr. Mayor, it's a great point, and it is definitely something to be thinking about when thinking about investment in downtown.
That's kind of why that helped kill the downtown, the restaurants and everything. People would come in, and there was no place to park to go eat or something like that, and
Mm-hmm.
so they just had to shut down.
Sure.
It's interesting you brought that up, because we brought that up at the staff level too, and that's why I knew he was a parking expert, so to speak. But the other thing, I've had some conversations. We've had a lot of inquiries on housing downtown, and I've had a lot of discussions with Amanda over at the Benton Economic Partnership, and that is something, and Mark might elbow me here, we might have to look at our ordinances and what we're doing, and seeing if there's any flexibility or changes that maybe we need to consider. I know why we have the no parking overnight, but is there some areas, can we look at cutting that down, whatever. That might be a discussion further, because we are getting a lot of inquiries about housing downtown, and I do think it's difficult to sustain some of the commercial operations without the housing.
Were your ears burning? I just heard housing, so, yes.
Have you seen growth with older buildings in cities like ours?
The reuse of like a building? Yes, there are some reuse of buildings. I'm trying to think of some examples off the top of my head. I think from our perspective of what we're seeing is once it's almost kind of what comes first, the chicken or egg, right? And so with seeing the opportunities for more housing development and that kind of pent up demand, I think will drive a stronger desire by community members to see more activity in the downtown. Certainly the spaces of using those for commercial uses are certainly being converted more for more of the restaurant kind of entertainment uses in smaller towns, but it's just kind of what the market can support in these areas. So I think there's a lot of opportunities out there that people don't think about when it comes to the reuse of those buildings for funding and getting them back up and built to a way that is compatible for certain different uses. And this is where I'm kind of going on a tangent, but a certain space in an older building may be only functional for a certain type of use, and how do you get to work for their needs. And so that's why I think we see a lot of kind of that first floor mixed use retail and more of the urban settings not being as attractive anymore because of ceiling heights, and then businesses are scaling back their footprints. So it's a complex thing to talk about and think about, but I think to your point, to end off my answer here, is just I think there's going to be some opportunities to see more of that kind of entertainment, commercial kind of uses for more residents as they come in.
Anybody else have any questions or anything for you? Noel or any of the planning commission have anything?
You know, a lot of those large housing, are you including like apartments, or is it all pretty much like, condos, townhouses and stuff like that?
Sure, and Mr. Mayor, council members, we're trying to open the door for what the market, let me back up. To create that flexibility, you know, we're not saying specifically somebody has to do apartments or condos. We're providing a land use plan that says, if you want to do something on smaller lots or a more medium to higher density, here's where it should go. That's up for, you know, the property owner or developer to figure out what works for them and what the market is supporting them to do. So, you know, these colors on this map that are more orangish and brown or hash marks is where there's opportunities for that to happen.
She's got a question.
I've only been in Foley for 3 years, but I can tell you I've been in very few of the Main Street buildings, and they're in very poor condition. Is Foley looking more at a complete remake of our Main Street? I mean, I don't understand. I at first believed, looking at some of these older buildings, some of them are really nice older buildings, beautiful as far as what they were in their day. They're not there anymore. What is Foley truly looking at on a Main Street development? Because I do know developers are more coming in and putting basement parking, underground parking, and that kind of thing, but I don't even know if Foley's good for that, because everybody I know has a sump pump. So, you know, I'm not familiar enough with Foley, but I know from what I see.
Yep.
And I was an electrical engineer, and I can tell you, there aren't many of these buildings that are gonna be an easy remake. They are all financially intensive buildings.
Yep. If you may, Mr. Mayor, I can just add a comment. I think those are great points, and I think it's the reuse of these historic buildings and how do you put investment into them to get them kind of revitalized. I think the development opportunities that we're thinking about or talking about in downtown are more infill opportunities. You know, the school site, the old school site is a vacant lot that could support a newer development where you're not removing the fabric of your downtown of an older building. And certainly this plan isn't exploring the various tools that are out there to help with smaller downtown, small main streets. And certainly the downtown vision plan that you guys did, was it 10 years ago? I mean, it starts to talk a lot about that, and I think that's it's separate from our initiative and our effort.
Any other questions? Yeah.
When you talked about involving the community, about how many people have you talked to in the city of Foley about some of the ideas that they would like to see happen in Foley?
Sure. Mr. Mayor, council members, Planning Commission, our initial effort was doing the survey. We reached about 70, 80 folks that participated in that survey. We made my phone number available for people to call directly and have the discussion. Maybe had just a handful of people that took that opportunity, but then certainly took the initiative to reach out to property owners, more specifically around the school, the northern area where we saw more growth, to get their ideas for their aspirations for development. And certainly the folks that we have spoke to in those areas certainly have a desire to develop. And so part of our overall early engagement was to really kind of listen and understand what people want to see, and so that was kind of reflected in some of the nuggets of information in the presentation. Now, our next step is getting this in a draft form, getting this plan back out to you and to the public to comment on, to make sure this really is speaking to what you want to see in your community over the next 20 years.
If I can add, we were limited because of COVID restrictions on having the community meetings. Normally, we'd like to see more of those items in those, like, you know, the wellness events and those, like, you know, those chances to set up a booth and have people walk in, but it was just really difficult, and we didn't want to stall moving the plan forward just because of the timing with our wastewater expansion project.
Well, I will add real quick too, we did send that information to the school district, so they pushed that out to their students and their parents as well. So we did our best through even social media and other avenues to really spread the word. But as Sarah's pointed, you know, we're limited, but we can do a better job in the next month or two and hopefully do some more public meetings.
Okay, oh, no?
One last question. With the, it sounds like residential seems to be the trend that a lot of towns are going with. How does that affect the tax base when you're talking a non-commercial? Well, I mean, if you're talking a high-rise or a condo, I'm thinking that would be classified as commercial, even though it is housing, because, you know, because of the size of it. But if you remove or take away businesses and put in that residential, will that affect, you know, how much money the city's getting?